I wasn't sure if I would ever get married.
Have you ever wondered what secrets a beloved TV star might carry long after the cameras stop rolling? For Malcolm-Jamal Warner, the man America once adored as Theo Huxtable on The Cosby Show, the truth was darker than anyone imagined. In his final days, whispers say he wrote down a list, 5 names. Not enemies, not rivals, but lovers. Each one tied to a heartbreak he swore he would never forgive. But how did the boyish star who once filled living rooms with laughter end up haunted by such a list? The answer lies in a lifetime of love stories that began in innocence and ended in silence, loss, or regret. When Malcolm first entered the spotlight in the 1980s, the world saw him as the charming son of TV's most famous family. On the outside, he looked untouchable, a rising actor with talent, charisma, and a career most would envy. But behind the applause, friends say he carried a secret fear. He wasn't scared of failing on screen. He was scared of being alone once the cameras stopped rolling. That fear would shape every relationship he had, pulling him closer to love, but also pushing him away when it mattered most. And it all began with his very first love, the one that fans never stopped talking about, Michelle Thomas. She wasn't just a co-star. She was the woman who marked the purest, brightest chapter of Malcolm's youth. Cast as Justine Phillips, Theo Huxtable's girlfriend on The Cosby Show, Michelle and Malcolm's chemistry quickly moved off-screen. What started as scripted kisses soon blurred into real, stolen moments, hands held in secret, smiles exchanged when no one was looking. By the late 80s, they had become Hollywood's golden young couple. For 6 unforgettable years, Michelle wasn't just Malcolm's girlfriend. She was his anchor. The person who kept him grounded as fame threatened to sweep him away. Even after they quietly drifted apart in the mid-90s, their bond never snapped. When Malcolm needed support, she was always there. And when Michelle faced her own battles, he came running. In 1997, tragedy struck. Michelle was diagnosed with a rare, aggressive form of cancer. By the following year, her strength had faded, and Malcolm dropped everything to be by her side. Friends say he sat in that hospital room holding her hand, refusing to let go. Her final words to him weren't grand or dramatic. They were 2 simple, secret words that only the 2 of them understood. Elephant juice, their private code for I love you, whispered one last time before she slipped away forever. For Malcolm, the loss was devastating. At just 28 years old, he had to say goodbye to the woman who had defined his youth, his first and truest love. Years later, he admitted he never truly recovered. Even after moving forward in life, marriage, fatherhood, success, Michelle's ghost remained. In quiet moments, he would still post tributes to her, reminding the world that her light had never faded from his heart. And that was the wound that would never close. Michelle wasn't just a name on that haunting list. She was the beginning of it. The first love stolen too soon, a shadow that followed him for the rest of his life. But fate wasn't done testing him, because after Michelle, another love entered his life, a steadier flame that looked like it could last forever, until slowly it slipped away. After losing Michelle Thomas, Malcolm wasn't just heartbroken, he was changed. That kind of pain doesn't fade, it carves itself into you. And for years it left him drifting, caught between fame and emptiness. But then, out of that darkness came a different kind of love. One that wasn't fiery like Michelle, but steady, mature. The kind of bond that looked like it could last a lifetime. Her name was Karen Molina White. Fans knew her as Charmaine from The Cosby Show, and later, A Different World. Malcolm knew her as something far more personal. Their story began quietly in the early 90s, when both were already familiar faces on TV. What started as friendship slowly turned into something deeper. And before long, they had built a love that felt rare in Hollywood. Loyal, grounded, real. Unlike Malcolm's whirlwind with Michelle, this was a slow burn, a partnership. Karen wasn't just his girlfriend, she was his equal. 2 young actors navigating the unpredictable world of fame side by side. She cheered him on when he launched Malcolm and Eddie, stood beside him on red carpets, and gave him the kind of stability he had always craved but never found. For nearly a decade, they were inseparable. To fans, they looked like the picture of calm love in a world full of chaos. And for a while, it seemed like Malcolm had finally found the forever he'd been chasing. But love doesn't always end in fire. Sometimes it just fades. By the early 2000s, the cracks began to show. There was no scandal. No messy headlines, just silence. They stopped appearing together, stopped being seen in public. And just like that, the golden couple disappeared. Rumors swirled, clashing schedules, different dreams, maybe even just time pulling them apart. But no one really knew the truth. Neither Malcolm nor Karen ever spoke harshly about the other. They didn't drag each other through interviews or tabloids. They simply drifted away. And yet, behind that quiet ending, there was pain. In a rare moment years later, Karen admitted, "We had a very beautiful, long love, and I will always cherish it. Graceful, poised, never bitter." Malcolm, though, carried it differently. Whispers say he once told a close friend, "I don't regret it, but I will never forgive myself for letting her go." That one sentence reveals everything. Because sometimes the worst heartbreak isn't losing someone to fate. It's knowing you had them, and you let them slip away. Karen Molina White became another name etched into Malcolm's story. Not because of betrayal, not because of lies, but because of regret. The regret of what might have been if only they had held on tighter. And just when it seemed like Malcolm had lost his chance at lasting love again, another chapter began, one that would pull him out of the shadows and into the harsh glare of the spotlight. A love story the entire world would watch unfold, only to crumble before their eyes. After the quiet heartbreak of Karen Molina White, Malcolm might have hoped for peace, for something simple and private. But life had other plans. His next love story wouldn't stay in the shadows. It exploded under the brightest lights of Hollywood. Her name? Regina King. By the early 2000s, Regina wasn't just an actress, she was already a force. With classics like 227, Boys in the Hood, and a growing list of award-winning roles, she was respected, admired, and loved. Malcolm, older now, scarred by past heartbreak, was searching for something real. When their paths crossed, the chemistry was undeniable. This time, Malcolm didn't hide. He and Regina stepped proudly into the public eye, their love shining at red carpets, award shows, and Hollywood events. They weren't just a couple, they were a power couple. At the 2011 Beat Awards, fans couldn't stop talking. Regina glowed in red. Malcolm looked sharp in a tailored suit. And together they seemed unstoppable. Headlines called them the golden couple of Black Hollywood. For once, it looked like Malcolm had found the home he'd been searching for. But the thing about picture-perfect love is that it often hides cracks, too deep for the cameras to see. Behind the scenes, insiders whispered about tension. Regina, strong and steady after surviving a divorce, wanted stability. She wanted a partner who would stand by her, build a family, give her son Ian the secure home he deserved. Malcolm, though deeply in love, hesitated. The shadow of his past heartbreak still lingered, making him wary of taking that final step. By 2013, the fairy tale unraveled. Regina quietly scrubbed their photos from social media. No long statement, no dramatic announcement, just silence. Malcolm, true to his pattern, didn't say a word. And that silence fueled even more speculation. Some reports claimed Regina felt betrayed, that Malcolm had pulled back just when she needed certainty. In a rare interview, Regina dropped one razor-sharp line. "Sometimes you love someone, but they're not ready for your love." She never said his name. She didn't have to. Everyone knew who she meant. For Malcolm, it was another wound carved in silence. To Regina, his silence looked like avoidance. To the public, it looked like guilt. And to Malcolm himself, it was the only way he knew how to hide pain that cut too deep. But life would deliver another cruel twist. In 2022, years after their breakup, Regina faced unimaginable tragedy when her beloved son Ian passed away. The world grieved with her, and whispers began. Did Malcolm reach out? Did he try to comfort the woman he once called his forever? No one ever confirmed it, but those closest to him believed he did in some way, because Regina had never truly left his heart. Regina King wasn't just another romance. She was the what if that haunted Malcolm for the rest of his life. Not a love stolen by fate, not one eroded by time, but one lost because he couldn't bring himself to commit when it mattered most. And so her name was etched on that infamous list, not because of betrayal, not because of lies, but because of regret. Regret for what could have been if only he had been ready. But even as that heartbreak lingered, another story was waiting. One that wouldn't play out in the spotlight, but in whispers. A romance hidden from the world, where silence became both its shield and its undoing. After the public collapse of his relationship with Regina King, Malcolm-Jamal Warner retreated. The glare of red carpets, the endless speculation, the headlines, it had left scars. And this time, he didn't want the world watching. He didn't want another love story to become a public circus. So when Karen Bryant entered his life, everything shifted into shadows. Karen wasn't an actress, a singer, or a starlet chasing fame. She was something else entirely, a powerhouse in her own right. Known for her sharp mind and leadership in the WNBA, Karen carried herself with independence and strength. It was that strength, not celebrity, that drew Malcolm in. Their connection grew quietly, almost secretly. They weren't walking red carpets hand in hand. They weren't splashed across tabloids. Sure, they were spotted together a few times. Dinners, events, but whenever questions came up, they dodged them. To the outside world, it was all whispers, but among close friends, it was obvious. Malcolm and Karen were more than just friends. And yet, the very thing that protected their relationship secrecy slowly became its downfall. Karen, accomplished and confident, didn't need Hollywood's spotlight, but she wanted something else. Clarity. A foundation. She didn't need a wedding dress or a stage spectacle, but she needed Malcolm to claim the love they shared. To say, "This is real. This is us." Malcolm, still scarred from his breakup with Regina King, hesitated. The weight of his past held him back, and once again, silence rose like a wall between them. Friends later revealed that Karen tried to get answers many times. She didn't demand marriage, but she wanted commitment. A sign, a promise. Malcolm, afraid of offering something he wasn't sure he could keep, gave her the same thing he gave so many others: silence. By 2013, the whispers faded. Malcolm was seen with someone new, and Karen's name quietly disappeared from the conversation. There was no messy breakup, no angry statements. Their love ended the same way it had begun, hidden, unspoken, unresolved. But behind that quiet ending was another wound. In one rare interview, Malcolm dropped a line that seemed to say it all. "I once lost someone wonderful. Not because we didn't love each other, but because we didn't talk enough." Many believe he was talking about Karen Bryant, and maybe he was. Because this love wasn't destroyed by betrayal or scandal. It wasn't stolen by tragedy or eroded by time. It simply dissolved into silence. And sometimes, silence can hurt more than anything else. Karen Bryant never dragged his name, never told her side of the story. She focused on her own success, rising as a symbol of power and leadership in women's sports. But those close to Malcolm knew this chapter never closed for him. That's why her name was said to be on that haunting list of 5. Not because she wronged him, but because she became the symbol of what happens when love is never fully claimed. For Malcolm, Karen Bryant represented unfinished business. The love never defined, the relationship left in shadows. And in its own way, that emptiness cut deeper than any betrayal ever could. But still, his story didn't end there. Because just when it seemed like silence would be the pattern forever, Malcolm found himself drawn into another love, one that felt different. One that almost gave him the lasting peace he had been chasing all along. By his 40s, Malcolm-Jamal Warner was no longer the young heartthrob America grew up with. He was older, wiser, seasoned by heartbreak. He had known the sweetness of first love, the quiet comfort of stability, the glow of a Hollywood power couple, and the emptiness of unfinished silence. What he craved now wasn't fame or passion, it was peace. Something lasting, something real. And that's when Regina Hatcher came into his life. Regina wasn't an actress. She wasn't chasing cameras or red carpets. She was a physician, respected in her field. A woman whose strength came not from Hollywood glitz, but from intellect, compassion, and quiet success. To Malcolm, she was different. After years of chaos and heartbreak, she felt like calm after a storm. They met through community circles away from the cameras. And unlike his public love with Regina King, Malcolm chose to keep this one private. He didn't parade her in magazines. He didn't flaunt her at every event. Instead, he guarded their relationship, hoping that this time, protecting it from the spotlight might give it a real chance to grow. And for a while, it worked. Friends described Malcolm as happier than they'd seen him in years. Attentive, romantic, present. He traveled just to be by her side. He showed up at medical events, community functions, quietly supporting her work. For the first time in a long time, It looked like he had found not just a partner, but a home. By 2012, whispers of an engagement began to spread. Friends swore they'd seen the couple ring shopping. In an interview, Malcolm even hinted that maybe it was time to think seriously about family. Fans lit up with excitement. Could this be it? After decades of loss and regret, had he finally found the love that would last forever? But just when the story seemed ready for a happy ending, it all collapsed. By late 2013, the relationship was over. No warning, no statement, no explanation. One day they were together, the next gone. Rumors filled the silence. Some said Malcolm buried himself in work, pulling away when she needed him most. Others claimed Regina wanted a commitment, a promise, something solid, while Malcolm, though in love, couldn't bring himself to take that final step. The most haunting whispers came from her inner circle. A close friend reportedly said Regina felt betrayed, that he had made promises only to walk away when it mattered. To her, it wasn't just heartbreak, it was abandonment. For Malcolm, the pain cut differently this time. This wasn't fate's cruelty, like Michelle. It wasn't the slow erosion of time, like Karen Molina White. And it wasn't the weight of public expectation, like Regina King. This time, the loss was on him. His silence, his hesitation, his fear. In a 2015 interview, when asked about love, he gave a line that chilled fans. "Sometimes we have everything we need, but not enough courage to hold on to it." He didn't name Regina Hatcher. He didn't have to. Everyone knew, because she wasn't just another chapter. She was the one who came closest to forever. The one who nearly gave him the family, the home, the stability he had been chasing since his 20s. And when it slipped away, the wound cut deeper than anything before. It was the heartbreak that proved a brutal truth. No matter how much love Malcolm found, he could never outrun the fears that lived inside him. But even after Regina, his story didn't end. Because there was still one more love. A woman who never appeared in the spotlight. A name the public never knew. A secret relationship that unfolded in whispers. And left behind the most haunting clue of all after Malcolm's passing. Even after Regina Hatcher, the woman who came closest to being his forever, Malcolm-Jamal Warner's story wasn't finished. Because somewhere in his later years, well into his 50s, another figure appeared. A woman no one ever truly knew. She wasn't an actress. She wasn't a singer. She wasn't even a public figure. Whispers say she was tied to the creative world, maybe a writer, maybe an editor, but her identity was never confirmed. She stayed completely out of the spotlight, never walking beside him on red carpets, never appearing in interviews, never becoming a headline. And yet, behind closed doors, she was there. Friends noticed the signs. Malcolm smiling at his phone like a teenager in love, slipping out of parties early to take her calls, disappearing from events just to spend time with her. For a short while, she gave him what he had been searching for his whole life: peace. But like so many times before, the story didn't last. The relationship ended as quietly as it began. No scandal, no betrayal, just absence. A silence heavier than any fight could ever be. A close friend later revealed that Malcolm wasn't angry when it ended. He wasn't bitter. He was just sad. The kind of sadness that sits in silence and lingers like a shadow. In one quiet moment, he admitted, "Sometimes absence hurts more than betrayal." And that was the tragedy of this final love. She wasn't lost to fate or scandal or time. She simply slipped away, leaving him with the haunting thought: could that have been the last time I would ever be loved? When Malcolm passed in 2025, a chilling post surfaced online. An anonymous woman shared a farewell, writing words that froze everyone who read them. He once told me, "The scariest thing isn't betrayal, it's being forgotten." No one ever confirmed who she was. No one ever proved the connection. But those closest to him believed she was real. The unnamed final love. The last ghost on that infamous list of 5. People Malcolm swore he would never forgive. Not because she betrayed him. Not because she lied. But because she forced him to face the cruelest truth of all. Even when love is pure, even when it feels safe, it can still slip away without warning. And for Malcolm, that absence was the deepest wound of them all. In the end, Malcolm-Jamal Warner's story wasn't just about fame, success, or the character that made him a household name. It was about love, and the way love shaped him, scarred him, and ultimately haunted him until the very last day. Michelle Thomas, the first love stolen by fate. Karen Molina White, the steady bond that time slowly unraveled. Regina King, the public romance crushed by expectations. Karen Bryant, the love never defined, lost to silence. Regina Hatcher, the almost forever destroyed by his own fear. And finally, the unnamed woman, an unfinished story that slipped away before it could ever become real. These weren't just names on a page. They were the wounds of a man who gave his heart fully, only to watch it break again and again. They were the ghosts that followed him, shaping not only his love life, but the way the world remembers him now. Because behind the bright lights of Hollywood, beyond the applause, Malcolm wasn't just Theo Huxtable, or an actor or a musician. He was a man searching for something we all crave, someone to love him forever. And yet every time he thought he had found it, fate, silence, or fear pulled it away. The list he left behind wasn't a record of blame. It was a confession, proof that even someone adored by millions could still feel the same fragile loneliness as anyone else. And that's the haunting truth. No matter how much fame you have, no matter how much success you achieve, the human heart remains breakable. Love can make us and it can destroy us. For Malcolm, it did both. So the next time you think of him, don't just remember the charming smile or the role that made him famous. Remember the man behind it all, a man who carried love, loss, and silence like shadows until the very end. Because every icon has a story. And sometimes, the untold truth is far more powerful than the image the world chooses to remember.